We've got a really distinguished panel here, and we're going to try to get down to some things perhaps to stimulate your thinking and what your industry is doing, and hope for you to go away from this session in an hour or so with one good idea. If we can produce that, if we can give you one good idea or something to think about, something that you can go back to your businesses in the next couple of days and say, you know, we should be doing something about this. So that's my goal, and I hope we'll try to achieve it. And we're going to need your help, by the way, to do that, because we're not going to do all the work up here. You're going to do a little bit of it yourself, okay? Let me introduce these distinguished gentlemen I have here. On my far right is Kelsey Mullen, lead AP. Kelsey is the Director of Residential Business Development with the U.S. Green Building Council, and he's an architect, project manager. He's been involved with LEED for most of the decade, although he doesn't look that old, does he? And he's now really heavily responsible for LEED for Homes, which is an area that the modular building industry should be heavily involved in, and he's based in San Diego. To Kelsey's left is Jon Sader. Jon is Director of Construction for the Make It Right Foundation, which means he gets to hang out with Brad and Angelina, right? I mean, a little of that. Jon's an old-time housing person and construction person. His third-generation Michigan construction family. He's done 24 LEED Platinum homes, including 9 modular homes, probably more than, I think that's more than anybody has done. Well, certainly more platinums than anybody has done. And Jon says his particular area of interest is in cost effectiveness, both in stick, modular, and he uses a lot of structural insulated panel SIP stuff as well. And to my immediate right here is Dr. Mohamed Al-Hussein, PhD and P engineer. That's a Canadian thing, right? Dr. Al-Hussein is an associate professor of the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Alberta, the whole School of Construction. And Dr. Al-Hussein has a PhD in construction engineering and management from Concordia University in Montreal, and many other degrees that we won't even mention. So I'm going to start by asking you right away, tell me the bad things you hear about your industry. What are the words that are used to describe the negative things about the modular industry? I lived in a trailer once. Give me some more words. What are some of the bad words that are used against your industry? Come on, help me out here. Huh? Cheap. Come on, somebody else. Flimsy. What else? Wobbly box. What was that one? Inferior materials. Ugly. Okay. All right. I want to contrast that with the NIST report, the NRC report, which said prefabrication and related techniques allow for more controlled conditions, fewer job site environmental impacts, less material waste, compressed project schedules, fewer conflicts in work crew, better sequencing of craftspersons, reduced. I mean, this sounds like a miracle here if you could do this. So why do we have this perception on the one hand and NRC saying this is a terrific industry, they should be doing more? Let me open that up. Who wants to go first? Jon?
Modulars have, there's an interesting way to overlap the industry battle that you guys are in. Modular, or using modular, or stepping forward with modular, you're dealing with the building departments, you're dealing with the preconceived notions of modulars that are left over from the 60s, and then of course you're dealing with the folks that would be rogue agents that are providing those types of flimsy types of structures that are being built out there, which are embattled against what we are developing, or embattled against what you develop as a true modular. So a lot of that overlap you battle on a regular basis. So when it comes to the green aspects of what we're dealing with, I'd love to be able to engage all of you to be thinking about the fact that the green or the LEED Platinum or the process of building a safe and healthy home is not really that different of a battle. There's a parallel that is created where you're introducing a new product or a new design or advanced engineering to an area that's not used to that. You've been in this battle for quite a while, so there's a unique opportunity for green to work well within modular. Excuse me. Where you are already used to the embattlement or the entrenchment. So in that, start and move forward with green and starting to ask questions about green, how it can actually increase the efficiencies of your plant, increase the quality of your product, and then push through the exact same battles when you're using solar or you're using advanced framing technologies, as far as simple ideas to very complex ideas such as air quality control inside of your units while they're being built at the factory versus the units while the people are living inside them, controlling the volatile organic compounds, so on and so forth. So the battle.
John, let me interrupt you there. Let's hear from Dr. Al-Hussein and from Kelsey on that for a second. Why the disconnect between negative connotations about modular building versus, a scientific study by the NRC here? What's your viewpoint on that, Dr. Al-Hussein?
Well, both hold true. There is an ugliness in what has been developed. And
I'm going to ask you to speak up a little bit, please.
Many of the buildings we have seen in the past, which is modularized or definition, depends how you can define modular, trailer homes or others, they have done really their fair share to diminish the value of modular. And there is a lot of those out there in the market being used by people with all kind of deficiencies, and these are really hold true to the concept of being bad or ugly and everything else. The other side of the equation, which is the NRC research, which really hold true as well, if you really look at the modular, modular is the process of building, and all we focus on this process. The process of building is by far superior than stick framing. And the fact that there is a lot of some studies recording to the CO2 emission footprint and the effect of what we do in a construction site on the public health and the rest of it makes the other side of the equation is accurate, and that's what we should really focus on. We cannot really eliminate the fact that yes, we have bad buildings were built. If you come to Alberta, where I'm from, trailer homes, they have done a very bad name, and it's very easy for anyone to jump in and become a modular contractor. So the disconnect is there. It's not a problem, and I call it a challenge, which we need to focus on the positive side, that those who do a good job, they could probably prevail, and having a 20-plus platinum LEED certified, that's one testimony to the fact that you guys can do it and can do it better.
Thank you. Kelsey, John brought up the issue of relating green to modular. What's the USGBC's take on green in modular construction? Where are we on that?
Well, modular and prefab is inherently green.
Could I ask you to speak up?
Sorry.
It's okay.
The strategies that are built into factory-built products are inherently green, and we recognize those efficiencies in our residential rating system, Lead for Homes. If you, for example, build a home with all major components being factory produced, if it's a modular home, or if all of the major components of a home, structural components, are prefabricated, we recognize that in our point structure. And so we recognize in that rating system that there is an inherent greenness to the process of modular and prefab. Getting to the point that these gentlemen just made about the industry perception of what is modular, what is prefab, I think a lot of it comes down to the definition of modular. What does the public see? Why do people think what they do about modular and prefab? And I think that that perception is changing. I think a good example of that is the prefab homes. They're called prefab homes that are being produced by the publication Dwell. Is anybody aware of these homes? And I think in the design industry, it's the definition or the trendy definition of modular and they like to call their products prefab. And there are a number of people on the forefront, the sharp end, driving this this high design in a prefab product. And Dwell has a series of homes that are off the shelf. You can buy their designs, and it's one example of how the industry is recognizing the efficiencies and the qualities that are built into modular and prefab, not necessarily recognizing the green, but it is one way that the industry might be recognizing quality structures and bringing the stigma, bringing these products away from the stigma that
I was unaware of that Dwell was doing that. That's very interesting. How many of you in the audience have touched a LEED project in any way? I mean, that is to say, had stuffed some of your products in quite a bit of representation. Okay, how many of you have actually produced a LEED, well, actually gone to LEED registration, just putting it into registration? And how many have gone to actual completion and certification and so forth? Okay, that's probably pretty...
What about, I have a question. What about residential versus commercial? This is commercial? Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator?
Yeah.
Is it okay for us to ask questions? My question to Kelsey is, why the disconnect on the LEED rating system? Why not recognize the inherent greenness on the commercial side of the equation? We've tried to get LEED to say, you already recognize modulars inherently greener on the LEED for homes. Why not in the other rating systems?
Yeah, it's these primarily because the development of the different rating systems happen with different groups. And prefab and modular was recognized in the development of LEED for homes because it is, even though it represents a very low percentage of all of the homes being built today, it is one of the recognized construction techniques, specifically with structural panels or these type of factory produced elements in home building. In the production or in the development of the commercial rating systems, it was not a construction technique that the group that developed the commercial rating systems recognized as being big enough. And so that group, the consensus process of developing the commercial rating systems didn't recognize it at that time. But that doesn't mean that it can't be recognized. And it's efforts like yours, Tom, that will bring these issues to light. And through the development of innovation points and these kind of things, we have the ability to then update the rating system when these when innovative or other type of construction techniques or green techniques come into the industry.
All right, thanks. Yeah, there is an innovation credit that you can get at the in any of the LEED programs that where modular might apply.
There is,
It's 1 point, and I mean it can be more than 1 point, but it's generally 1 point. So I think to Tom's point, to Tom's question, it's modular sort of got left out of the early days of LEED NC, and it's having a tough time catching up. Let's talk about government, and let's try to concentrate a little bit on the commercial side if we can, to Tom's point. What about government entities, government, building codes and local planning and zoning boards and funding sources and so forth, public buildings? Why aren't we seeing more acceptance of modular construction in those entities? What are the roadblocks there? Dr. Al-Hussein, what are you seeing in your research on that?
Well, I can touch on one item and leave the other. So the procurement strategy, I personally face that with my own university and my city as well. There is an acceptance to the modular in the mind of those who are having the project. Managers want to build new facilities, student dorms, and the rest of it. But the rules of the game are controlling the environment, the lowest bidder. And the way I found it, there is some challenges associated with the modular institutions. They are not really ready to bid, and the criteria being the lowest bid diminish your abilities to come in, whether you cannot come lowest bid or nothing. So one way maybe MBI can take on help the public entities to be perceptive, or help them to make way or give advantage to modular concept. So that's one criteria I have been asked if I can help the people around where I live in the city to come up with a procurement strategy or pre-selection criteria, pre-qualifications, and the rest of it. In terms of funding, I don't know, probably that's the area which...
What are the roadblocks on the government side, John, outside of strictly residential? What do you've done commercial, what do you hear, and why is there still this perception that modular is a problem?
Well, it's very easy. Usually if you install 30 perfect modular structures, you may not make the front page of the local newspaper. But if one person installs one bad modular or something goes in, you usually make the front page because it becomes a media hype at that point. A lot of what I've seen is the actual folks that are writing the RFPs don't actually understand the differences within our own industry. They don't understand the differences between prefab versus offsite versus modular, and they tend to want to clump everything together and not actually divide it out, which comes to an educational side for us when we're dealing with all the different people that are from writing the RFP for the actual project itself all the way through to what they're specifying. Most of us understand that a true modular is not really any different. It's just an off-site construction versus an on-site construction. The 2x4s are the same, or the metal strips are the same, so on and so forth. So working with the architects or working with the cities that are actually writing the RFPs, there's usually an RFP that comes out before the RFP. And that request for proposals or request for qualifications, in that is when they're requesting someone to write the actual criteria for a commercial project. So a lot of folks will pick it up at the request for proposal when they're actually doing the bidding, as opposed to working at the very front end when they're actually writing the criteria for the building itself. So a lot of efforts on everybody's parts is we should be a little bit more focused on when they're actually writing the criteria for the project, because it helps you on the back end be able to do everything that you need to be able to do.
Does that mean we've got to go to 27,000 counties, cities throughout the United States and have the MBI helping to write their local RFP language? I mean, this is
it would be great if we had that amount of time. But more specifically, if you know you're working in a given area and you know that a particular city, for instance, I'm from New Orleans, working down in New Orleans, there's a single organization known as NORA there. That particular group writes an enormous amount of RFPs. So keeping a keynote on their website and at least logging into it, you'd be able to see, you can get on their notification list for different cities, and they'll notify you when they're writing a prescriptive process for how they're going to be bidding a particular project. Working with them from that point is much easier than trying to battle your way through the misconceptions after it's already been written.
Does anybody in the audience have any success? Or you have a question, sir? Go ahead. Could you tell who you are, please?
Yeah, I'm Pat Vandergriff. I'm a consultant. I work for MBI. But how much of this has, pardon the voice, how much of this has to do with the kind of class system structure that's been created by the competitors of the modular, being the site-built contractors, who've kind of, over the years, just made it seem as though if you want to buy a second-class product, go buy a modular instead of the site-built, when in fact the facts show the modular building's better built.
I haven't got an answer to that. I'll leave that up to the panel. Any thoughts, Mohamed? It's not really proven what I'm going to say. We're looking at what Europe, why they are more advanced than us, North America. There is a hard evidence that in North America we have a very good skilled trades. And if you go to the site build, they're really good at what they do. And if you demand on them to do the quality you do in the factory, they can do it because there is a lot of skill set available. We have a lot of institutions that train framers, plumbers, electricians. So yes, you are competing. And yesterday I attended the presentation. I don't know, John are you here? So, yeah.
He mentioned that you could claim that you are better than the site built for many things, but the trades out there are skilled and good, and they can catch up with what you claim that you are better than them. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right, but yes, they are good at what they do. And to be distinguished, you must be doing something better. And you have to identify where the areas you can be better. And that's what probably working with MBI, they can really help collectively to see what is it you do better, or other organization.
Kelsey, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been thinking the last couple points have made me think about the parallel efforts that modular industry and USGBC has in getting the word out, in educating, making people aware of the benefits of pursuing these various strategies. It really is about education. It's about getting the word out. And what we've done is we've empowered champions in local markets to go out with the message, to get the word out, to work with governments, and to take the USGBC message that I think the modular industry you could utilize the same strategy in education by empowering champions. If it's on a very high level, or if it's on a local level, you end up getting the word out about all of the research. You take case studies of successful projects, and you educate those that are the decision makers on implementing either mandates or codes, or simply making the decision on what construction techniques to use.
John, have you, in your work with Make It Right Foundation, or in your other work, have you found ways to overcome these government restrictions and so forth? Anything that's, Kelsey says, empower champions. How many of you have testified before planning boards or other entities to fight some of these regulations? Yes, sir. Go ahead again.
We have a unique opportunity in the land of modular, which is interesting. We previously used to simply argue that it was faster and that it was better and that we had a better quality. Right. If you overlay the intentions of what you could call the green movement, where you're doing waste control, where you're doing quality control at a much higher level, where you're doing air quality control at a much higher level, you overlay the no less than 200 or 300 core components to what is considered green. In the world of modular, you hit almost every single one of those before you even have to try. You're designed that way. So interestingly enough, this overlay of embattling against the curmudgeons or the older establishment of folks that are writing things.
My readers, in other words, right? Thanks a lot.
You have this ability now to simply look at the criteria for what is considered to be green, and now your argument isn't just about it's cheaper or it's faster. Okay? You don't have to discern the difference so much. You can actually sign on to the green world and start to explain. The difference is, you go back 10 years in our experience, and just getting them to listen was step one, the most difficult thing to do. Now, everybody that I have been involved with, the majority of all municipalities in the last 5 years, are clamoring for information on how is this project more sustainable? How is this project or this material or this product more sustainable? And in the world of modular, you guys have got this one licked. You've been set up for it for years. You've been waiting for the audience, in my opinion. You have the audience now. That's even with the downturn in the economy, the launch of the stimulus packages, the launch of affordable, sustainable buildings. You have an audience that you didn't have before, and that is all of these different folks involved in all governmental levels that want to listen to how you can build something sustainably and green. And you guys have it built into your system already.
Great. I'm going to ask Dr. Al-Hussein to respond to that in a second, but we've heard two things that might be something that MBI should consider, and that is Kelsey's thought. I'm sorry about that. Kelsey's thought about empowering champions, And, no matter what you think about USGBC and LEED, it's been an incredible PR machine. The word has gotten out, and it's, the troops are on the ground, and they're very committed to what they're doing. And they push. They push me as an editor to write articles about the success of green projects and LEED projects and so forth. It is almost a Harvard Business School case study in how to make a successful nonprofit membership organization work. So that's one. And then Jon keeps coming back to, hey, you're already there. You're doing it. You're green already. You just haven't told anybody well enough that you are. So maybe we can come back to that theme. But Dr. Al-Hussein, did you have any thoughts about this concept of dealing with government agencies and also where MBI as a group can be going in that kind of direction?
Well, I think first to start with, LEED is a voluntary option. It will not be a mandatory thing. So you cannot really go and say, well, listen, you make sure that everybody will be green or LEED, and then we will be on top of everybody else. So I think that's the case. It will be this way always, and that will probably, Kelsey can...
But John's point is that more and more public entities are demanding it, and therefore it's fueling the growth of the movement. So
yeah,
go ahead.
It's true, they will demand it, but we will not enforce it. It's not something that will be enforceable down the road. That's what I believe, or at least at the current stage. What I would suggest that you focus on things that are truly different for what you do than those side build. And I will list quite a few of those. Waste, Jon mentioned that waste, it's quantifiable. And I personally have done some research, and probably other researchers have done a lot, and MBI has commissioned one of the research will look at that in terms of CO2 footprint. Amount of material you throw out, if you give the same floor plan to one framer, he will fill up a truckload of material waste. Same floor plan to give it to another framer who thinks before he cuts, and all of a sudden there is nothing out there. Cardboard or packaging, it's a huge amount. This is factory direct. When you transport it from the factory, ship it to the factory, there's lots of those. I look at different dimensions myself as a scientist, is the effect of what we do in construction on the public health. I'll give you one single example, the drywall. It's nice and shiny painted, but to come to that shiny and nice, you have to plaster that and paint and sand it. All this will be inhaled into the healthy people, which we expose them to something which they shouldn't really be. Where the factory you could claim, or you could really, not really claim, you can testify that, yes, you can have better control of that, you can automate some of that system. So I'm hoping in the future, also LEED is mainly for environmental perception or quantification. But hopefully these are new dimensions which maybe will make you stand separated from the others.
And we're hearing a lot in our writing. We're writing a lot, and we're hearing from others to tell us about this. The green thing has expanded in its thinking and its scope to where people are thinking about issues like how people get to job sites. And we talked about this a little bit at lunch. And the impact of the workforce on the job site, just getting there, how long they're there, how long they're idling their trucks, and all that kind of thing. Similarly, we're seeing more interest in the density question, where if you take almost any metropolitan area, the buildings will be contribute about twice the carbon emissions that transportation to work and so forth. Whereas in the suburbs, it's just the reverse. The transportation system contributes about twice the level of carbon emissions that we see compared to buildings. That kind of thinking 10 years ago, we weren't that sophisticated to think about that kind of stuff. And I think to your point, Dr. Al-Hussein, this whole issue of waste going beyond just packaging and drywall and so forth, but also the greenness of the process is interesting. Do you agree on that?
Absolutely. That's basically, you need to focus. At the end of the day, LEED is the best system we have, but to some degree focus on the finished product. This is the product I did, this is how I build it, and I'm looking for credit. The process is something which I'm hoping to see. Maybe it's there, but most of us don't know where to find it. And that's one of the key issues. Maybe you can find or rely on MBI to tell you, okay, well, what point in LEED that helps me or give me the credit I deserve for the process, because you really, your variation of product, but your process is very much in control, and that's 100% I agree.
How would you address this if you were advising one of our audience members in their business to get? How would they go about getting some credit for their production process in LEED, or make a stronger case at least?
Well, we do have a process of pursuing points that aren't addressed in the LEED rating systems. But to backtrack a little bit, the LEED rating systems did set out to certify buildings and the built product, which is one of the issues with modular and prefab components. There was some definition problems around temporary structures that I believe were figured out in the commercial LEED rating systems. But we do begin to address some of these issues with the distance traveled with products being delivered, etc. But if you were to integrate into the process, into the construction, the planning, some truly innovative techniques to achieve some very green strategies, I would encourage the research into the credit interpretation or the innovation and design database to see if other projects might have considered some of these strategies, and if not, then I would encourage the teams to identify and defend these strategies and submit them to the reviewers of their certification for their LEED product. That process I'm encouraging it, but it's also fairly difficult to achieve these points.
Yes.
And it's many times costly because you're spending a lot of time, you're getting your consultants together, you're doing a lot of research so that you can defend the point that you're trying to make. However, this is one way to really change a rating system, and this has happened in the past.
But it is one point. Do we have a question over here?
Yes. I was wondering if you
could you tell us who you are?
Mike Valero, I'm a manufacturer. But if you could speak to the basic difference that is inherent to resistance by local jurisdictions as far as the fear of loss of control from a off-site built structure to a site-built structure. All the points that you're making are viable. But at the end of the day, people are going to accept green. On a stick-built building, it does not represent a threat or a challenge to the local builders, to the local economy, to the local jurisdictions doing inspections. You know, some of the things that we feel are part of our fight are that there is an inherent disconnect between the regulatory agencies that feel like they may have lost the ability to control construction because it's off-site and may be transported.
They can't see it. They can't inspect it, and so forth.
I actually can.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. Yeah.
What's interesting to that is that's actually one of your best advantages. It's a disadvantage and advantage at the same time. LEED very intently integrates the architect with the engineer, with the builder, with the homeowner, with how the products are being used in the house, how it's being performed, and it mainly states what's the durability of the structure. The asset that you guys in modular already have is, let's say you're delivering a 90% complete unit. By doing that, you already have all of those same players on your team at the same time. Where it's much more difficult for a site-built structure to achieve LEED, and where they have to suffer as much as you guys have to suffer, is their engineer that they hired doesn't know anything about LEED. The guy that's building it doesn't know anything about LEED. all of those folks are then competing with each other to charge more money to build something LEED. Where you guys have a cost-effective control structure built in place where you're providing the plumbing, you're providing the electrical, you're providing all the different skilled trades that LEED is measuring.
John, I think the question is addressed more toward government entities. Am I correct, sir? Government regulatory agencies losing control, feeling a sense of losing control due to offsite.
I agree totally with everything that you're addressing as far as green and as far as leads. I'm just saying that as a practical matter, there is an inherent disconnect in local jurisdictional acceptance. And when we opened this conversation, people were asking about words like cheap and trailers and perception.
Right.
That has nothing to do with green. It has to do with the perception in our industry. And my question is do you see, in your experience, an inherent fear by local jurisdiction that helps create that second-class citizen because there is a fear of loss of control on a local basis? Because I see it every day, and I just can't believe that nobody else in this room can see it.
Oh, I can certainly see it. To Mike's point, we have local building code officials who have said, we are not going to let modular building in our town. And we've had to deal with that. It's a control issue. You said you bring the plumbing and the electrical and all that together. That's what they're afraid of. They didn't see that being built in their town. And I think that's what we wrestle with is the local code official did not see that building being built, so he doesn't trust our process.
And I think, Tom, though, going to Kelsey's point, though, isn't that inherent upon you and your industry to get out there and take the code officials through your plant?
Show them those code officials, 27,000. I mean, it's a daunting task. Certainly, we're getting some good ideas today, though.
Right. We deal with that. We deal with that with LEED buildings, and we've found success in certain cities by referencing past projects, and it's a process, and you have to take baby steps, but it's just a matter of education and getting them there.
Let's turn to a different subject. How many of you are using various forms of computer modeling, whether that's CAD or 3D or BIM? Anybody who's using CAD? How many of you are using CAD? All right, you're all using CAD pretty much. How many of you are getting into BIM? And when I say BIM, building information modeling, I'm talking about parametric modeling where you can actually change dynamically your models. How many of you are doing that right now? Okay, a few. All right. Anybody here, Dr. Al-Hussein, what are you hearing at the university level on BIM in the modular industry? Is this something that this audience should be looking at more carefully?
Well, it will make you stand. Another point is part of the industrialization is being ahead in the game with the CAD system. CAD system, and there is a lot of assumption there. They may not exist in the 5 years or 3 years term. So everybody will be from CAD is a drafting tool, AutoCAD or whatever. Probably we all use it, but it's a drafting tool mainly. BIM is the next level. How you define it is a big word. It could become a buzzword. It's a philosophy. It's not really a design. It's a philosophy. What you build in the computer before you go to site. So manufacturing industry, whether it's car manufacturing industry or airplanes or all these industries, they are way ahead in the game, and they are really the pioneer for what we call it BIM, if I want to call it. It depends how you define BIM. You talk to different people, they have different definitions. Some people will say if I move from 2D to 3D, it's a BIM, or if I add cost and time, it's a BIM, and somebody else will add, well, I'll add recipes and method and processes, CO2 footprint and the rest of it, and lead points. So all of a sudden your BIM model will become the hub of what you do. There is a rumor in my province that the provincial government of Alberta, they have a proposal now on their table to make it mandatory for any project above $10 million. Nobody can compete, whether a contractor or a subcontractor. They should show a record of every trade that has used BIM before they come in to bid on these projects. It's a rumor, but it's making everybody nervous. And that's something I would put in the floor, or maybe you can come back to MBI to help you, educate you to come to BIM. To become a BIM today, it will cost you lots of money. It's a big process to go through, but it is something you have to start becoming proactive, because those who are BIM ready, they will take the projects ahead of you, whether stick frame or modular or any other thing.
In the United States, two states, Wisconsin and Texas, are already essentially mandating BIM for public projects of a certain size. And so that's going to be the next big trend we're saying at the magazine. And I would encourage this industry to be thinking about that carefully. Tom, did you have a point?
Yes, sir. The NIST NRC study you referenced earlier, one of the other breakthrough technologies was the increased use of BIM. I was a little surprised to see how few hands went up when you asked, is our industry using BIM? Because to me it seems like a slam dunk, a perfect fit for our industry. We will certainly take that back and offer more resources and training on that topic. It appears to be a very clear deliverable that we ought to be providing for our members.
Absolutely, and what the benefit to your industry of doing this is that, as Dr. Al-Hussein has said, you know, when government entities are demanding on say a commercial office, an office building for a state agency or something like that, or a provincial agency, they're not going to look at you. You're a no start if you're not going to be doing it in BIM. That's one thing. The other is that, well, when you've got your BIM objects
and you know all the different complications. If for those of you that haven't been to something like Green Build, which is a expo that happens with
Let's ask the question. How many of you have been to Green Build?
Okay. How many people have actually read the NC, LEED NC?
The LEED for New Construction document.
Yes, for the actual. Right. Getting to know the new products, like what's happening with open loop sprinkler systems, which are normally not allowed to be used inside of a commercial residence or inside of a commercial structure. Those open loop sprinkler systems are actually on the cutting edge of being able to be used now in commercial, which means that you're eliminating significant cost. Solar array advancements in solar that can be incorporated directly into your plant, where you're delivering a product with solar incorporated, used to be $8 a kilowatt. You're pushing levels now of where it's $1 a kilowatt. So significant product advantages and product movements have happened across the board of things that you should be implementing into your product that you can drive and provide a much better product at a significant cost ratio difference against your competition. And mentioned you had spoke about cities overlaying things like BNIM. If you look at Kansas City as an example, if you are producing a LEED Silver project, you automatically receive tax breaks. You automatically receive a bump up in the permitting process. You go to the front of the line. There's all these different incentives, much like a highway with the little diamonds where you have to have two people in the car.
HOV lanes.
HOV lanes, where now if you're driving a hybrid, you can go ahead and drive in that lane. All of these types of things are happening across the cities, across the plain. So in battling the entrenchments, start in the easier cities where it's already accepted as opposed to the more difficult cities. Yes?
Hang on a second, James.
Let's wait till we get a...
I'm James Guthrie. I'm an architect in the industry. And this issue about LEED is huge for us in the commercial side.
Yeah.
We love it seeing it in the residential side because there's hope that it'll show up. But at the moment, it's actually a huge obstacle to get into the HOV lane because we have to prove it on these, I'm sorry, what's the exceptional credits. It's not obvious.
Innovation.
Innovation credits. So if a client comes to us and says, we want a sustainable building, all we can say is, well, we might be able to get you something for being modular. We don't know.
Right.
And that's where we're at today.
Probably going to make Kelsey mad with this statement.
Sorry?
I'm probably going to make Kelsey mad with this statement. Bear in mind, most LEED providers or LEED raters or people that do review on your project, You started generating these people how long ago?
3 years ago. Yeah.
So the knowledge depth of the people that are reviewing your project for LEED may not be that deep. I would recommend chatting with more than one LEED provider.
Well, you're describing the residential delivery model, and specifically as LEED, as modular relates to LEED commercial. Even though modular is not specifically recognized like it is in LEED for homes, the qualities of your construction are. So the efficiencies of a product that's delivered on site can help contribute to multiple points in the LEED rating system. I saw so many hands.
Let me give you an example of where our efficiencies hurt us, and that's in the waste category. LEED gives you credit for the volume of waste that you take off of a construction site.
Right.
With modular, we don't deliver a lot of waste to the construction site to take off of the construction site.
So here's the problem.
We're penalized in that regard.
You're not being penalized. You're contributing. So here's the problem with that. Your messaging is wrong. What you need to tell the contractors is that you're delivering X amount of square feet that doesn't have any waste whatsoever. If they were to stick frame that, how much waste would they be experiencing? 20%, 30%? You've got zero. So what you're doing is helping them achieve that waste factor. It's in the messaging. And I think a terrific, let me make a point here.
Go ahead. Then we'll go to the lady there.
I think a terrific example of how you can achieve that is in this document. Has anybody read this document? This is on the Resources tab, MBI webpage. And it's a terrific resource that goes through each measure and each point in the LEED commercial rating system as modular might impact it. And it's an absolute, I read this on the plane coming here, and it has a point-by-point analysis going through each one of our points, saying how a modular product might be able to impact that. So this is the case study that you take to a contractor to justify your product. And just that waste factor point is, it's in the messaging. I mean, you've got whatever percentage you're taking to them reduces that impact on waste.
Okay, we have a question back there. Yes, miss.
Yeah, to your point.
What is your name, please?
Lori Robert with NRB. We actually have just gone through a LEED project that's just pending its certification now. And to that point, what we discovered was, well, in theory, that sounds like it's a very valid point where our waste is much less. The reality of it is when it's measured at the project site. The fact that the building gets to the project site with significantly less waste, so let's just say, for our argument's sake, there's a ton of waste from a site-built project, 75% of which is going to be recycled, point. In the modular process, that ton of waste that ends up on the site becomes a quarter of a ton of waste because not that much gets to the site because we take care of it at the plant. We're still going to be measured on the percentage of the reduced amount of waste. So in practical terms, there is no advantage. LEED can't recognize it because it doesn't know how to measure what you're saving at the plant.
Right. It doesn't measure at the plant. I think that you would still, in the overall calculation, benefit from this construction technique. I really do. I think in the calculation, the end result, because of the reduction, would be a benefit and a selling point. And it's not just about material waste. It's about control. It's about quality. It's about the ability to specify product and deliver on, low VOC, etc., and deliver on site to spec, and to be able to deliver that in your overall messaging to those that are decision makers is I think key. It's in the marketing. I think you can do it.
Kelsey, can I ask a question? To Lori's point, it seems like we're being penalized for being efficient in the factory and bringing less waste to the site. We have less waste to reduce on the site, but who at the Green Building, USGBC is so huge. Who can we talk to? Who can we get a group of our guys, go up to D.C. and sit down with a group of U.S. Green Building Council and say, how do we start this dialogue to address these issues that we're talking about? This is great, and we'll leave here, and I'll go home and I'll try to call, and I'll get a myriad of voicemails and call him and call that person. We've got to start making some traction on this.
Who's the go-to person on this, Kelsey?
We have a number of departments at USGBC that are broken down by market development and technical development. You probably want to talk to the technical development side of USGBC and possibly get GBCI in the room also.
That would be Peter. Peter, help me with a name.
Right. Well, you probably don't want to talk to Peter. I would start at USGBC and at the technical.
Let's have this conversation offline. But,
yeah.
And let's. I mean, to Tom's point, and I want to start wrapping up here. But
there was a question in the
I'm
floor.
sorry. Was there a question over there? Thank you.
I think Kelsey implied this, but just to be more explicit about it, when you go for innovation credits, that's often the process that changes the rating system. If you get an innovation credit and enough people get the innovation credit, if someone else gets it, you can use that innovation credit. So it's an automatic credit. If you're doing the same thing some other modular builder is doing, all you have to say, and they have a whole database of the innovation credits, and if it's been approved and USGBC has approved the innovation credit, then they can, that's an automatic credit. So that's one way to do it, and someone within the modular industry really ought to push that.
Dr. Al-Hussein wanted to respond to that point.
I would like just to respond to the first question.
Okay.
What I would like to see different, and I put my request to Tom, and I'm going to put a lot of pressure on him. I'm used to a different setup of conferences. I wish to see you coming down and presenting 15-20 minutes of successful cases. This is the message I would like to take with me, and I will showcase, well, listen, I have seen a project was done in this part of the country, another project is done in this part of the country, this is the innovation. And if I just want to answer your question, you ask what I personally would like to see different. I would love to see successful cases, and that's where the message will go out and make promotion. I know Tom may not like what I'm saying, but...
No, I do. We had some ideas at lunch, and we will follow up on those. I know exactly where you're going with this.
I think people...
Bring the pressure.
To Kelsey's point, one of the ways that USGBC and LEED got so much traction in the beginning was that every time there was a successful project, they really pushed it, and some of those projects were pretty rough and not really, you look back at them and say, oh my God, how did we support those projects? How did we write about them in my magazine sometimes? But they were the best at the time, and people learned from it. We all learn from case studies. We all learn from mistakes too, don't we? I mean, that's a real learning area. Where did things go wrong? What could we have done better? I'm going to just go back through my notes and make a point of some of the things that I've heard. We heard from Kelsey about empowering champions. Is that something that MBI needs to create more of a mechanism to do? We heard from Dr. Al-Hussein talking about emphasizing these kind of difficult areas of waste and carbon footprint and public health, safety issue. Presumably your industry is safer than stick and regular commercial on-site construction. Can you prove that? Is that something that you can take to public agencies? We heard from Kelsey about looking at the possibility of going to the Technical Development Committee and the GBCI, the Green Building Certification Institute, and so forth, starting a dialogue with USGBC. I think these are all concrete things that we can take out of this session. Any other things that you would like to see based on our conversation here, or just something that's been bugging you for a long time that we can suggest to Tom and the staff and to the board as to things you'd like to see MBI doing more to overcome some of the problems of reputation, of government regulatory issues, the green issue, and so forth. Anything you'd like to see?
I actually would like to...
John, go ahead.
I'd like to address the traction question. Your questions are very accurate, and I need to also make Kelsey happy in my conversation back and forth. What I'd love to be able to see MBI do for all of you in the room, because a lot of you have the same basic kind of question about the overlay of LEED, NC, and what you're doing. There are a lot of very, very good LEED providers that are out there to assist you through the LEED NC process. In fact, on our project, we've probably had 4 or 5 that have helped us through various stages. So what I would say to garner the traction that you're after is reach out and talk to more than one of these consultants. Because if MBI were to issue a list of the consultants that are ready to consult on LEED NC for you, you would find a lot of them. And they all come with different viewpoints, they all come with different histories, they all come with different backgrounds in reference to your successful project over here, or in reference to your question of points that have already been achieved in an innovation strategy. So start speaking to more of these consultants. LEED has a hugely open book to be able to listen and make changes to their program. So try that process. I think that traction process of talking to more than one provider. How many people here have 5 or 6 providers in their repertoire when it comes to a LEED program? And right there is a huge difference in understanding LEED. Because each personality brings about a different interpretation of what's happening with LEED, and a different way to measure it, and a different innovation point that you may or may not be able to achieve. And a different background.
There are only 131,000 LEED APs out there right now, LEED accredited professionals. So there's probably plenty of consultants that would want to do this kind of work. And I think consultants are going to see your industry as a good opportunity. I mean, there's going to be a certain kind of green and LEED consultant who's going to say, I want to do more of this. I see this as the future. Tying it in with BIM, tying it in with integrated project delivery and other things that we're seeing as trends. There's going to be 5 or 10 leaders in that area that are going to have some great ideas for you. So case studies of success stories, Tom, I would really encourage that. You've got an awards program, maybe that's a way to tie it in. Finland, we'll meet in Finland next year, right? Okay, huh? And
There's a question.
there was another question, go ahead. Tell us your name, please.
Kendra Cox with Blazer Industries. We're a manufacturer. One thing we hear, people ask us if we have a LEED AP on staff. I'm not certain that that's the right move for us. I think we should use the experts as we can. It seems like everybody's trying to become a LEED AP. Would you recommend that we work with people that have more experience as APs? I mean, we've seen that working with architects is a good route as well, as long as they're educated. We'll just stick to manufacturing and maybe let somebody else do the LEED part? Probably.
I mean, it's good to bring that kind of familiarity onto staff. But we've recognized the broad spectrum of needs in the LEED accreditation, and have recently introduced the LEED Green Associate, which is not meant to be the person who maybe drives a project through the LEED process and certification process, but brings that level of familiarity onto a team that that they can then utilize internally or then market. So look for the LEED GA accreditation. It's probably the better path, but I would agree that it's probably best to, well, at times it could be best to bring those APs that have a wealth of experience into the fold to help you with the
This is the new category, Kelsey?
It is.
What is it called again?
The LEED Green Associate, LEED GA.
Green Associate, right.
And then
So
at the same time,
more of an integrator Is that it? Is that it?
It's a preliminary understanding of green building. If it's a general understanding of green building, it's not an in-depth understanding of the LEED process or the LEED rating system. At the same time, we introduced LEED GA, we introduced LEED with specialties, so you can specialize in different rating systems, NC, homes, et cetera.
There was a hand out there.
Sorry, gentleman and then the lady.
I'm John Lauer with Anchor Engineering out of Denver, Colorado. And I talked with Tom yesterday. I feel somewhat frustrated. I fit into a gray area, I guess, with the Modular Building Institute. We design multifamily structures in Colorado, which are modular structures, and we're able to meet the LEED certification. We have a building in Snowmass, Colorado that has a gold certification. And I would like to see somewhat to find out where I fit into. I guess we're not considered completely commercial, but we have designed hotels in Colorado that are three structures that I guess a Modular Building Institute would consider as commercial. So I'd like to see our type of engineering, our type of design being incorporated into the Modular Building Institute. And I also disagree with Dr. Hussein's statement that stick-built is better quality here in the United States, because I can go out to different job sites and find a list of things that'll be wrong on every project, but when I go to my modular building, they have the jigs to build the walls and stuff, and you're not finding the kind of discrepancies that you do find in the stick-built process.
I'm going to let Dr. Al-Hussein respond to that, and then I'm going to go back to our... And I want to hear about your project, too, real quickly.
My apology, I didn't make it clear. I'm saying the stick build in North America is superior to what you see out anywhere else.
We in other parts of the world?
Even Europe. And if you go to Europe, see them the way we stick build here, and you can monitor the way they do things, it will cost them a tremendous amount of time and money. So probably, I'm guessing, because of the stick framing trades are well trained here, they are superior in terms of the fact of competition with the... I'm not saying that they are better than you or better than modular. I'm saying they are really good at what they do to some degree. Maybe exceptionals are there, but if you look at framers, they frame the house two guys or three guys or four guys the most within less than a week. And they do it right and all this, and depends who you get to do the job. I'm saying the degree in North America versus what you have seen outside, or what personally I observed in Europe or somewhere else. My apology if I wasn't clear on that. I'm saying...
But Finland's better than us, though, right?
Not in the stick build. Not in the stick build, no.
Yes. What was that project that you're getting certified?
Oh, it's a 60,000 square foot mine, Extrata Mines in Sudbury, Ontario.
It's 60,000 square?
60,000 square foot. It's 20,000 square feet of two-story office with a huge atrium, and then it's op center, et cetera. It's a facility in Sudbury, Ontario, in Canada. So we're just waiting. We've just gone through the audit process, so we're just kind of waiting for our final approval.
What is your question then?
I was just really going to comment to Kendra's point, because you were asking, Kendra, about whether you should have a lead AP on staff, and I just went through the process. So and it's a bit daunting, I must say, but I did get the lead AP, and I would still not ever take on a project without, to John's point, getting a good lead consultant to work with, because they take a lot of the pain out of the process. They really do. They know what they're up to. It's not something you'd want to take on, I don't think, on your own, by far.
I have a salesperson in our magazine who got an early lead AP after 3 tries taking the exam, and I would never trust Brian to build a doghouse. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who have gone out and gotten the accreditation, and it's good because they're in the field and they want to learn. And we've got lawyers, we've got other non-designers and non-construction and engineering people who are doing it. I do think you have to be very careful and vet that process to make sure you're getting people who've really done. And you're going to do all the due diligence that you would normally do to spec that out. But just because you see lead AP after the name doesn't mean that the person can design design a building for you or construct it properly. John, do you have any experience with that in terms of, you've mentioned finding these. Is there any advice you would give in finding those consultants?
Keep asking questions and look at actual track record.
Yeah. Visit jobs.
Investigate the track record, just because, you know, a lot of folks will have worked in part or on a single portion of a project that was LEED Silver.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they were the actual person that filled out all of the paperwork to submit for LEED Silver, as an example. So keep talking to folks, keep learning. The question I asked about how many people read LEED as far as NC, how many people understood it? I don't see near as many hands going up. So, excuse me, keep asking questions. Keep pulling in different folks from LEED, USGBC. They're incredibly supportive. Keep battling that out, because as the governmental entities catch on to the quality of air quality control and so on and so forth, you can see this happening very quickly across the board.
I think we're going to wind it up there, Tom. I want to thank our very, very active panel here, Dr. Al-Hussein, Jon Sader, Kelsey Mullen. Thank you so much for really bringing some incredible knowledge and advice to our audience here. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.